So Sam, what do you think about this Citroen? Don't you think it's something that people should know more about?
Of course.
And how can they do that?
Subscribe to the channel right now. Click the button down below.
Don't let Sam down. Citroen and style, I think, can be very much considered as synonymous. And these custom-bodied Citroens by Henri Chapron are just amazing. Among my favorites, if not my favorite, is this car, the Coupe Le Dandy. It has an amazing form, both very 1950s, even looking back a bit to the 40s and 30s, but still thoroughly modern. The use of chrome trim here is very much Chapron and very much unlike the standard Flaminio Bertone sedan, but I think it really adds something to the shape, and especially in expressing the movement of the shape from front to rear. In addition, all the wonderful details about the windshield, which is lower than the standard sedan, and this top that has this wonderfully curving bright trim and just enough fastback reference, even though it's got a deck lid, to remind us of the sedan. Plus the wonderful badging that can be found everywhere. The Henri Chapron name on the fender, the chevron with the Henri Chapron logo on the trunk lid is just absolutely amazing. And even the details such as the Robergel wheels. It just makes the car look very, very special. A true, elegant boulevardier. So this is a very special moment on the Audrain Museum Network. Well, it's always special whenever I'm joined by my close personal friend, Citroen Sam, formerly known as Skoda Sam, but actually I guess simultaneously known as Skoda Sam. And the occasion is, of course, the last time we were together in a car on these roads, it was another Citroen.
It was. After we film with our cars, we put the GoPros on the exterior of the car, and we shoot, you know, the shots of the hood, the shots of the wheels on the side of the car, different angles. And during this opportunity, sometimes we ask Donald if we could ride passenger, and I rarely do, but for the Citroen, I had to. I've always wanted to feel what a hydropneumatic suspension felt like, and it absolutely lived up to expectations.
Well, I'm really glad it did, because I love that car. And the car that we're in today is a very special Citroen indeed. This is the first of 3 very special Citroens that you'll see on the Audrain Museum Network, all of which were acquired by the Audrain collections from the great Mullen collection. And this is a 1963 Citroen Le Dandy Coupe, bodied by the great Parisian coach builder Henri Chapron. And it's a very interesting thing because, as many of you may know, the legendary Flaminio Bertone designed Citroen DS of 1955 was a unit body car, but a unit body car with a difference. None of the body panels were a part of the structure. They all bolted on and off. And in fact, it was one of the great things that they would show in their advertisements, how easy it was to change a wheel, that you just unbolted the fender, put the car on its hydraulic suspension, hydropneumatic suspension rather, lifted it up, and just removed the wheel.
Yes.
It was the simplest thing you could possibly imagine.
And Charles de Gaulle found that very useful in 1962, that the fact that the car could drive on 3 wheels. As there was an assassination attempt, a wheel was shot, tire deflated, and they were able to make an escape. And he vowed to never ride in another brand of car after that.
The Citroen DS that saved de Gaulle's life, absolutely. And that body functionality was something that Henri Chapron took advantage of in creating these very special custom-bodied Citroen DS's. And Henri Chapron was very interesting because he was the last of the surviving French coach builders. Coach building had all but died out in France after World War II, thanks to taxation and the death of the great brands like Delahaye, Delage, Hotchkiss, Samson, all the cars that were bodied by the French coach builders. And yet there was Citroen and there was Henri Chapron who thought, with this fender idea, I'll bet I could do something really special. And so he made a cabriolet version of the DS, which proved so popular that Citroen actually put it into their line, and Chapron manufactured for them. But he also continued to manufacture other special cars, including this car, the Dandy, which was introduced in 1958, and they built only 50 of these cars. And in my opinion, I think that this is actually better looking than the Cabriolet.
I have to agree. I mean, the Cabriolet is beautiful, but something about the way, the swooping C-pillar, well, I guess it's a B-pillar because...
Well, no, you still call it a C-pillar, even if there's no structural B-pillar.
True. Such a funky car, and I guess I'm the funky car correspondent on the channel, and this absolutely ticks all the boxes for me. It's beautiful in a very special way.
Now, we just had a wonderful moment, which is one that you shared in the break as well. Going over that great curve and that bridge with those wonderful bumps, and this car just glides across them.
I honestly barely felt it, and I saw the film truck, which has the Magna Ride suspension. It's a GMC Denali. You know, that was bouncing all over the place. This barely felt it.
And in terms of the design, everybody who watches this channel knows that I am a design nut. When you have a body like the Citroen sedan that is so incredibly special, you know, you really need to do something to replace it that is equally special and characterful. And I think that with the coupe, you get more of that finishing line of Bertoni's original sedan design than you do in the Cabriolet or in some of the other Chapron variants which followed.
Yeah, it has a sort of, in the sedan version, it has two converging lines at the back. And obviously you don't have that with the Cabriolet. The way the roof needs to fold, there's certain ways that the line can be made. And this kind of fills it out beautifully.
It does. Oh, gosh, it's effortless. And the other thing I like about this car is that the standard Citroen sedan has a very advanced, and indeed the entire car is space age, dashboard and interior. However, in the Le Dandy, it has a very chronometric dashboard with lots of little silver-rimmed gauges that really give it this very precision watch-like feel, which I think is quite wonderful.
Oh, by, how would you pronounce it? Jaeger-LeCoultre?
Jaeger-LeCoultre, yes. Absolutely amazing chronograph and watch and instrument manufacturer. And this really is a car that suits its name. Le Dandy, of course, for the dandy, a gentleman who dresses in a certain style. I don't know who that might be. You know, they might sport bow ties or things like that. But this is a car that you can tell was built for that clientele.
Absolutely. This was definitely a car made for someone who favored style over most other things. You know, these Citroens, well, they were beautiful, comfortable, luxurious. Maybe they were a little tougher to maintain, but if you knew how to keep one running, they were solid.
Also, of course, the other characteristic which the target customer for this car had was a lot of money, because these cost twice what the standard Citroen cost for arguably 2/3 of the functionality, since you really didn't have a usable rear seat. And this example is also fitted with the Citromatic transmission, which is a very interesting thing. Again, one of the things that Citroen sought to do to provide as effortless a driving experience as possible was to provide this in place of a manual transmission. And it's quite ingenious, of course. It takes advantage of the hydromatic systems in assistance. It is very akin to a modern semi-automatic. So it's an assisted clutchless transmission.
This was a very interesting age in transmissions. This was, you know, they were phasing out the non-synchro manual gearboxes, kind of coming in with the automatics, and it was a world where no one really knew which direction it would go. And this was Citroen's take on the semi-automatic gearbox. And it's just a very interesting, very Citroen way to design a gearbox.
It is a very idiosyncratic shift pattern, that's for sure.
Yes.
And I think that they did it so much better than Mercedes did it with their high drag, which was, I think, a fairly monstrous gearbox. And it also seems to me the spiritual heir of the great French pre-selected gearboxes of the pre-war period and immediate post-war period. It's a wonderful gearbox. It's not the smoothest thing in the world, but then again, the early automatic transmissions weren't very smooth either. They had a tendency to sort of you along whenever it changed gears, like in a Dynaflow, for instance. But this car is thoroughly delightful. I mean, it really feels of a piece. The handling is wonderful. That's the one thing. People talk about the ride of Citroens. The handling is also something which is quite wonderful as well.
Of course. I mean, this feels like a modern car just sitting in it. Well, I wouldn't say it feels like a modern car. This is more comfortable than a modern car. These seats are like a couch. You sink into them. You know, any Rolls-Royce, Bentley today, they're still car seats. You know, they hold you in place around corners, which is great, but you can't relax, you know, lay down in the back of it like you can in one of these, even in the front seat.
And it's something that Citroen really understood the way a lot of French manufacturers understood, and some others as well, that the experience, the driver and passenger experience, is a total part of the suspension, the upholstery, the roll angles, the tires, everything contributes to the ride and the experience. And this, as you said, gets every part of it right.
Yeah.
The seat is comfortable, but not at all soft, and it's just an absolute delight. Yeah. Speaking of the tires, that's also a very special thing about this car. Michelin,
who's also a French company, used a highly modified version of the Citroen DS with, how many wheels is it? Something like 10?
Yes.
It had like 2 truck tires in the middle to test those as well, and it tests longevity, you know, how they handled, and it's just an interesting choice that they chose a DS.
Well, of course, Michelin has another connection with Citroen, of course, because at one point Michelin owned Citroen.
Yes.
Which is a very strange thing to think of today, but the company's been through a number of ownership changes, but I think that the spirit of André Citroën lived for a very long time in these cars, and I hope that anyone who has the opportunity to experience one of these cars takes it, because it really is something quite special. I think there's nothing else like this as a collector car from the 1950s and 60s. As you said, it's as usable as a modern car, and yet definitely feels like no modern car today.
Yes.
It's absolutely astonishing. One of the other things, of course, people always complain about with these cars, the 2-liter, 74 horsepower inline 4 engine is not the equal of the suspension and body concept. But nonetheless, it gets the job done.
To be fair, that wasn't Citroen's first choice either. They originally intended to have a flat 6, but they used their budget for everything else in the car, which I am glad about.
Yes, there are those people that consider that the DS in some ways was a retrograde step from the Traction because there was never a 6-cylinder option. But nonetheless, it still offers amazing, amazing experience to drive, and something which, again, I love design, I love coach-built cars, so to have a car that combines Citroen heritage, the hydropneumatics, this wonderful design, and the limited edition coach-built car, I think is something very special.
This definitely is the total package in terms of a collector car.
Plus, of course, with the name, I just feel a little bit more like a dandy when I'm driving a Dundee. Thanks for joining me, Sam. This is a lot of fun.
Thank you for having me.